Medieval kings held far more power than modern-day prime ministers. They had the authority to make new laws and, until King John agreed to Magna Carta, raise taxation whenever they pleased. A lot, though, depended on the personal qualities of the king. A king with a strong personality and an ability to gain and retain the loyalty of his barons could impose his will on his realm. A wise king knew exactly how far he could push his barons before they pushed back. A weak king, on the other hand, would quickly find himself struggling to control his realm and find the loyalty of his barons only lasted for as long as they respected his leadership abilities. While the feudal system potentially gave the king almost unlimited political power, a lot depended on his personality, people skills and leadership abilities. Kings had two main duties in medieval Europe: to maintain peace within their realm and protect it from external threats. To maintain peace within the realm, kings both relied on and had to control their often ambitious barons. Disputes between barons over land were commonplace, and it was a king's duty to resolve these disputes, preferably by peaceful means, but by force if necessary, before they spiralled out of control. The barons themselves had a responsibility to maintain order in the lands they controlled. Kings had the right to make all decisions affecting the government of the realm, but they were also expected to consult with their barons. A good king would make the barons feel as if they were important to him by appointing them to important positions and listening to their advice before acting. This helped to ensure their loyalty. The barons were expected to bring knights to fight for the king when asked, so it was also important for the king to be a good soldier and military leader in order to command their respect. Kings who were successful on the battlefield rarely faced serious threats from their barons. A king who lost too many battles, on the other hand, would appear weak and find discontent with his rule growing amongst them. The other main threat to internal order came from crime and banditry. Sheriffs were appointed to maintain law and order in each county, and the king established courts to deal with criminals. It was not unknown for kings to judge criminal cases themselves, but usually judges were appointed who would travel the country hearing cases. It was very important that the king's courts were seen to be fair, although punishments could be very harsh. For example, the penalty for stealing a sheep or a cow could be death. In an intensely religious age, it was also vitally important for the king to be seen to be acting as what the people believed he was, God's anointed ruler. Kings were expected not just to protect the church, but to actively support and uphold its rights. The church was outside the king's control, but as a member of the church, like everyone else, he had to be seen to take his faith seriously. Medieval people could regard the king whose rule was unsuccessful as a sign of divine disapproval. Kings attended church services regularly and spent money on building new monasteries and cathedrals as a demonstration of their faith. Religion underpinned the role of the king from the very beginning of his reign when his coronation ceremony took place. England's kings were crowned at the high altar of Westminster Abbey by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the most important church leader in England. It was during this ceremony that the king was anointed with holy oils which sanctified his person, setting him apart from other mere mortals as God's chosen ruler. To rebel against or attack the king was considered an offence against God. The coronation ceremony also presented the king with the great symbols of his position. The crown placed on his head by the archbishop symbolised his regal glory. The orb was a symbol of his rights and responsibilities as ruler. The sceptre symbolised his role as judge of his people, the sword his duty to protect them. The new king swore a triple oath: to protect the church, to administer justice, and to act with mercy towards his subjects. The great ritual of the coronation formalised and sanctified the king's position, and once it was completed, all present renewed the oaths of homage they had sworn to his predecessor. This was their acknowledgement of the new king's rights as ruler. Display was an important part of kingship, and kings rarely lived in one place for long. They constantly moved between residences in all parts of the country in order to be seen by as many of their people as possible. At formal public occasions throughout the year, the king would appear in his full regalia to be seen by as many people as possible to emphasise and reinforce his position as their duly crowned and anointed king. The reigns of Richard and John perfectly illustrate the huge importance of the personal qualities of the king. Despite having little interest in the day-to-day governance of his realm, Richard faced relatively few problems keeping it in order, most of his problems coming from the external threat from the King of France. John, on the other hand, who took a keen interest in the governance of his realm, constantly struggled to keep it under control, and in the end faced a serious revolt from his barons. Next time we'll consider the characters of both brothers and how it affected their reigns.